Join us in this enlightening episode as Sunny Megatron, a renowned health advocate, shares her personal journey with medical gaslighting. From the challenges of getting diagnosed to the trials of treatment, Sunny opens up about her experiences and offers invaluable advice for women facing similar health issues. Tune in to learn more about the often overlooked aspects of women's health and wellness. Welcome to Happiness on Tap podcast, where guests dive deep into the vulnerable experiences that contribute to their happiness. I'm Leanne Herron, certified health and life coach, owner of Finding Resilience with Leanne, and creator and host of this podcast. This episode is part of our health and wellness series. So thank you for joining us for Balancing Act, Sunny Megatron on Navigating Health Over 40. Hello, Sunny. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Great. I am doing great. I'm excited to have this conversation because it is something that a lot of us deal with. And it is, getting some answers can be life-changing, and not getting those answers can be really debilitating.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Sunny is an award-winning clinical sexologist, BDSM and certified sexuality educator, and media personality. She is the host and executive producer of the Showtime original series, Sex with Sunny Megatron, co-host award-winning American Sex podcast and Open Deeply podcast, and was the 2021's XBIZ Sexpert of the Year. Currently, she is the editor-in-chief of the kink-focused Zipper magazine. Known for her one-of-a-kind, build-your-own adventure approach to sex, her passion is helping others overcome shame and find their power through play and pleasure. She is also working on her first book, Customizable Kink, a strategic guide to adult play. You can learn more about Sunny on her website and on her links page in the show notes. Sunny, your bio is absolutely amazing. I have followed you for years. Can you share a little bit about what you do and your one-of-a-kind approach to sex and sexual health?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a clinical sexologist with a specialty in BDSM education. And, sex and kink are very, very misunderstood. And unlocking those and what they mean to us personally can unlock so much more in the rest of our lives. And it's something we don't talk about. It's something that society at large is conditioned to shame us about and to give us, be sexy. Oh, but not too sexy, So I dedicate my work to helping people figure that out for themselves, because living authentically and getting rid of that shame can be everything. It can be life-changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will touch on that real quick because that is what drew me to you. My husband and I first found Sunny Megatron watching the Showtime original series, Sex with Sunny Megatron, probably back in 2018, 2019. If you haven't seen it, it is a must watch. I may have found her before then, but that series in particular was so powerful for me personally. And part of my self-education also includes listening to Sunny's American Sex podcast and Open Deeply podcast. But these shows, really brought me to a place of acceptance and following you and learning from you and learning about kink being customizable. It really gave me permission. It helped me with acceptance of myself. And it alleviated a lot of anxiety as I was learning about kink and
Mhm.
what I wanted in life. So make sure that you catch our conversation on the Kink Your Way podcast, diving deep, the making of a Showtime original series on sex education with Sunny Megatron. The link will be in the show notes.
And it was good. I'm giving my personal endorsement here. So y'all go listen.
It was an amazing episode. Thank you so much. I invited Sunny to be on the Happiness on Tap podcast because over the years of learning from Sunny, the educator, I have also learned about Sunny, the person. I have learned about her life changes, challenges, and experiences that influenced her education and career. And I have asked her here to speak about some of those life changes, challenges, and experiences, as well as those things with regards to her medical health. Uh, Sunny believes life storytelling has power, and it does have the power to heal. Happiness on Tap's mission is to provide value to our listeners by providing tips and tools to help people realize that they are not alone, while providing education and information to help them improve their daily life and health, cope better with life's challenges, reduce stress, and become the best, most authentic version of themselves. So, Sunny, what inspired you to specialize in sex education?
Um, Teaching my younger self that didn't know these things, that had to find these things out the hard way, is really, that is my mission every day when I'm teaching, when I'm coaching, etc. It's like, I wish I had somebody to tell me these things. And oftentimes it is simply a matter of sharing a story, letting people know they're not alone, giving a name to something that people is like, I feel that, but I don't even know how to label it. So I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. So that is a huge part of what I do and why I do it. And I started out always being interested in human sexuality in college, and a lot of missteps and weird life things happened. I ended up working for an ad agency for almost 20 years, and I found myself laid off in the recession of 2008 at the time that my own personal, I don't know, midlife crisis, renaissance, however you want to put it, coincided with that. And I was like, now's the time for a career change. So boom, here we are.
Amazing. And it's amazing what the pandemic also did for many people. It did for me as well. That was my opportunity to really evaluate, is this what I want to continue to do? Or is this the best opportunity for me to make a switch?
Yes.
And
Yes. The
so,
pandemic, like for all the horrible things that the pandemic has brought to this world, one little gleaming gem is that we all had a good sit with ourselves and we all started asking what's really important, what is missing in my life, and we, I don't know, a lot of us got the humility, I guess, to say, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe I'm not as emotionally resilient as I thought. Maybe, and maybe therapy isn't a bad idea. Poo-poo therapy my whole life, but maybe I need some. A lot of us did that.
I
And
did all of
oh,
that.
yes. And we are so, I've seen people that I've known for years who are like the stoic, like, I am what I am. My beliefs are what I believe. What do you mean grow? I don't need to grow. I am who I, and they're like crying and growing and going to therapy. I'm like, yeah, I love you. Yes. So yeah.
It absolutely did that for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It made me do some self-evaluation on where I saw my future. And that's where I realized that my dream of helping people was not being served in the legal field.
Right.
It was a nice dream and it was a nice thought, but it really wasn't in reality. I wasn't helping people in the way that I wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gave me that opportunity. And I try to remind myself that that switch was a beautiful stone in my path to my future, regardless of what caused me to make that choice at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it provided just an incredible opportunity that I listened to. And I think I remember even saying, I'm listening, I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
How has your perspective on health and wellness evolved over the years? Your personal.
Wow. Okay. So, I have had a chronic health condition since I can remember, since I was born. My two kids have very similar issues. And, through, I don't know, I remember being 6, 7 years old at the doctor complaining, and I had always gotten like, oh, it's just growing pains. Oh, you're sensitive. Oh, there's always an excuse, right? And those excuses changed with age, but they kept with me. So for the majority of my life, didn't really care about my health. I thought I was healthy. I thought that any issues I was feeling, that was me, that was a personal, deficiency, or I was sensitive, or I couldn't handle the thing that everybody must feel, and they're all handling it fine because they're not complaining about this stuff. And I came from a family that was very much like, you went to the dentist every 6 months and you never went to the doctor. There could be a bone sticking out of your skin. It's like, are you sure you need to go to the doctor? So I wasn't raised with that to value, going to the doctor on a regular basis. So most of my life, I've just kind of ignored it. I just went to the doctor when I was sick, and that was it. And it was in my 40s that I started really going, something's up here. Like, this stuff that's supposed to be no big deal, it's getting worse. Something's weird. I had a few attempts at like, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to stick with this doctor and this medical team and these specialists until they figure it out. And, I played like chicken with them, they won every time. I was like, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I'm getting the runaround. Nobody's listening to me. And it was during the pandemic that I was like, I don't always have insurance. I'm lucky enough to have it right now. This is getting worse. I'm going to figure this out, both for myself and for my kids, who, as time is going on, they're feeling worse. So it's really changed in the last, was 2021 when I really started like, I'm going to figure this out. And I have been doctors every, week. And, oh my goodness, it's a lot. So it's changed. I'm still not happy with the medical system, but I think I've learned what their limitations are, why their limitations are, and what they're just not gonna help me with. And that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that point of their limitations, that 10-15 minute appointment where they glance over your medical record, listen to you, and then tell you what you don't want to hear, and you're out the door.
Right.
And yeah, it's very much within their limitations on how long they can spend, what they can do, what they can refer, what they can't, or they want to shift you off to a team. And yeah,
right.
it's just a big old mess.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I understand, because there are some crappy doctors out there, and it's no secret that in the medical field, like, ego and, that's a big part of, but there are a lot of great doctors out there too. I have had some amazing doctors that really care, that really want to help figure this out. And they're just like, but I can't. That is not my scope. I have to refer you to a specialist, and that specialist is not going to do that. Or, I have to do it under a billing code, or I can't order this test or this medication without doing all of these things first. And here are all of my restrictions. And it's like, damn, even when I find somebody who really is like, we're going to figure this the hell out, they're like, I can't, my hands are tied. It's hard. Yeah.
Man, that is way frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And my perspective on like health and wellness and women's health started so young, because I had my daughter at 17. So I went from a pediatrician who flat out told me that was the end of our arrangement as doctor patient
Yeah.
because I was no longer a child and now I needed to be going to an OBGYN and I needed to find an adult doctor. And then I listened to another woman who recommended me to an OBGYN that she had. And I've never had issues. I can be with a man, a woman. It doesn't really phase me one way or another. And probably because of pregnancy, you know, how many doctors are between your legs. But at that time, I listened to her, and he was an older gentleman, much older gentleman. And the fact that I was 17, he was just so opinionated and in his own mind that the fact that I was 17 and pregnant was wrong, that even though he knew the sex of my child, he wouldn't tell me. I didn't earn that. I didn't deserve that right. And, you know, so that it carried with me through, you know, doctor after doctor after doctor. And I did have about 10 years where I had a wonderful doctor who you knew when you had an appointment that it was going to be about an hour late from the previous person, but she was going to spend 30, 45 minutes to an hour with you. You knew it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter. You just knew you might be running late.
Yeah.
And you could see the look on everybody's faces in the waiting room, but they all knew. They knew that once you got in to see her, you were in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lost her and got a new doctor, and she wasn't great at all. You know, she's who I went to when I needed a referral for therapy, who handed me a prescription for antidepressants. That's where my switch just was like, okay, I'm done. I've got to
Yeah.
find somebody else. I've got to find other avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I still haven't found any other avenues. So we'll,
It's hard. It's hard. And, you know, it's not unknown. The statistics are out there that especially women or people who are assigned female at birth who have some sort of chronic illness, autoimmune disease, that sort of thing, things that are a little bit murky, you know,
mm-hmm.
that one, we're not listened to. Two, these types of ailments, conditions, whatever you want to call it, are systemic. And in our healthcare system, we have doctors that are specialists. And, you know, my condition is systemic. And now late breaking news, neurologically based, but, you know, that's a whole nother can of worms. But, you know, it was a constant. Okay, hi, I'm the cardiologist. I only want to hear about your heart. Okay, but like everything that's good, you know, not that I want you to solve the issues that are in other parts of my body, but don't you think you should know? Like, is that relevant background to know? So, you know, that's where I have had a huge issue, is that it's trying to find somebody that can treat you systemically, or even when they want to treat you systemically, cannot, because that's not their jurisdiction. I had a great doctor recently. I still do have this doctor, and I'm in Las Vegas. So I've moved from Chicago to Las Vegas. Chicago medical system was pretty good. Las Vegas, not so great. It, you know, just like education, it ranks, I think, 49th in the
Mm.
country. Like medical is about the same, give or take a couple. And, you know, this one doctor was like, okay, you know, I'm an immunologist, you know, this is what I do. It sounds like XYZ. I can't diagnose you with that. He's like, let's do a little bit of like kind of off the record, like quick diagnostics in my office. Let me see. And he's like, yeah. He's like, if I could diagnose you with this, I think this is an issue, but you have to see XYZ doctor. The problem here in Vegas was like, everybody, and it's no secret, it's connective tissue disorder, probably Ehlers-Danlos, which isn't my main problem, by the way. It's just like one of those things along the road to the bigger problem, and nobody wants to diagnose it. It's like my GP is like, well, I have specialists that's diagnosed. Immunologist, I'm an immunologist. That's not my, you need to go to a rheumatologist. Go to the rheumatologist, the only one on my plan, only one. Not that great. And he was like, whoa, this is after some other tests came back, like actually proving something's wrong with me for the first time in like 50 years. Whoa, that's a big deal. That's not my jurisdiction. Good luck. Maybe you should go see a geneticist or something. I'm like, you're the only guy who, and I don't even care about like I go into every doctor's appointment, like I don't care about the diagnosis. If the diagnosis satisfies some kind of paperwork for insurance, so then you can move forward with other tests, awesome. If a label on what's wrong with me isn't going to benefit me in that way, I could give a shit. I just want to feel better. And I go into every doctor with a little printout. I tried to put it in one sheet. And, I have, this is why I'm here. I try to narrow it down to no more than 3 objectives for the visit. I have them laid out, and then I'll have some like general questions. I try to keep those to maybe like 5 or 6 questions, because I know you got like 10, 15 minutes, right? Yep. 5 or 6 questions. I keep them very short and concise. I highlight like just the important words so they can scan and just say boom, 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 boom. I give a quick list of like, here's my symptoms. Here's the abnormal tests I've had. Here are the other specialists I'm going to, and what we're doing. I try to put on one sheet so they can see it. And it's like my whole life, I was like, am I the bad patient? Is it me? What is going on? And, then I start doing this sheet, and most of the doctors are like, this is amazing. I'm like, right, let's cut to the chase. Like, cut to that small talk. Like, what's your symptoms? Just look at my sheet, glance at it. We can make the most of our 10 minutes, and still they're like, my hands are tied, or I don't give a shit, one or the other.
Yeah. And it's funny that you brought that up, because I had watched another podcast or listened to another podcast with you, Fat Chicks on Top. And that was one of the things that you specifically talked about, was this list, you trying to be proactive and prepared when you're working with a new doctor. And it stuck with me. So of course I wanted to talk to you about it so you could explain it, which you just did. But it also stuck with me to the point that I recommended that, like, make a list to one of my clients who has a very long history, to help that, to see here, this is what I'm here to see you for. This is what I'm seeing this person for, list of therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists, whatever, medical doctors, but so that they could see that you're already getting treatment or working with somebody, but you're here in front of me for this. Hopefully that helps. Like you said, you've had, some that have thought, this is gold. I think it's genius. I think we should all walk around with that in our back pocket. Because we're not our diagnosis.
Yeah. And I want to mention with that sheet, like, not only do I bring it to every single doctor's appointment, like even if I've seen that doctor 8,000 times, like you are getting a sheet just a recap. Here's what's going on. Here's what's happening today. And sometimes the doctor will be like, this is great, thanks. And they'll hand it back to me. And I'll say, no, put that in my file. Every time I give you a sheet, I want you to put it in my file. So if there is ever a discrepancy, there is ever something that was grossly missed, or that, I have been gaslit by doctors my entire life. And part of that is like, because I gaslit myself, like, maybe I am imagining that. Maybe I am making a big deal out of that. Maybe that didn't happen in our last appointment, and I'm just... now I have it on paper and I can go back and be like, no. You knew about this and you said it wasn't a big deal, or you said the insurance had to do XYZ, but I called my insurance and that's not true. And that one, it's ammunition, but two, it's more like my internal ammunition and my confidence. Because I've been so beat
You're
down and
remembering correctly.
yeah, and so taught to think like I'm the one who's wrong. I'm the one who doesn't remember. And it's come in handy. It has come in handy for me when I had a doctor do a bunch of tests, and one test, which is like the test that finally has hopefully blown the lid open on maybe what might be a big part of what's going on. Things came back very wrong. And I had a physician's assistant give me the results to my tests. I'm like, oh, I'm not seeing my neurologist. Who are you? Okay, cool. And he's like, everything's fine. Well, and long story short, I have no secrets. I don't care. People, I live authentically. So like, I'm not a personal brand who's made myself up on the internet. I'm just me on the internet. I have like a completely non-functioning vestibular system, which is a big deal. And the guy was like, so, that's why you're a little dizzy, but you're like 52 and that happens when you get older. And I was like, excuse me, what? I'm not dizzy. What are you talking about? That's weird. And I just kind of walked away feeling like something's not right but I just like, it's too much. It's too much. I put the test results in a drawer for a couple of months. And one day I was like, I'm going to get out those test results and because I don't know what they mean. It was like this whole sheet. It was like a big report, graphs. And, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to figure out what all this stuff means. Thank goodness for ChatGPT-4. Granted, ChatGPT is not always accurate, but it's like Wikipedia. It's a good starting point.
It's a good starting point
to know like, oh, these are the terms I need to Google to find out more, And I sat down and I was like, whoa, this is a big deal. This is very unusual. Why did this guy just blow me off? So I went back and I was like, I would like to speak with my actual doctor because I think this could be the crux of a lot of my problems. And it was like that history. So he could look back and see these are the symptoms I was complaining of, not just the ones the doctor happened to write down, but everything. And yeah, that was everything.
And that makes, I've kind of had a similar, because I've changed doctors trying to find answers. And I left my primary care who just handed me a prescription for an antidepressant when I specifically said, I want a referral to a therapist. I'm not going to take any medications. I've never taken medications. I'm not going to start now. I just needed a little help to get over the hump. And so then I go see this new doctor. She runs the gamut of blood work. I get my pap done. I get my mammogram done. I get all this blood work done. And I get a phone call from her nurse saying, everything's great. We'll see you in a year. And I went, wait, what do you mean everything? Because I personally know I had some issues that should have been discussed. And so I waited. I gave it time to see if the doctor would reach out to me. No. See if I got any copies of my medical stuff. No. The only one I got was my mammogram because that was an outside company. So yeah, they happily sent me my results, said everything's great. So I finally call my doctor's office and say, I want a copy of my labs. And I had to get permission. And then they had to grant me access to look at them. And then they wanted you to sign this thing saying that you read them and you understood them. It's like this big yellow box. And so I downloaded everything, printed it off, and I looked at it. And of course, what I knew to be true was right there in black and white. And they should have called me back immediately and said, okay, we need to do a further biopsy. Nothing, zero, nothing. And so I got back on the medical records, and where it says you're supposed to acknowledge that you've received these and that you agree with them, I wrote a paragraph of, I don't agree with a damn thing. None of these things were talked to me about. Why is this test show this? And I wasn't informed. Why was I not scheduled to come in for a follow-up biopsy? Why did this? Nothing. Still haven't heard nothing. It's been weeks. And I'm like, and I'm just fuming over what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I have found that keeping up with my medical stuff since 2021, like it was like mid 2021, as I have been, it is literally a like really solid part-time job. At some points, it's a full-time job. And I am researching, I'm, doing this and that. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like all of this one requires the know-how to do this, requires, not a whole lot of background in science. There's stuff you can read and learn, but like to understand your limitations when it comes to that knowledge, and to understand like your biases, and to navigate the internet and different studies and things, and evaluate like, this person's saying this thing about this medical condition. Are they full of crap on the internet? Who is this? Was this a peer-reviewed study? What were the holes in this study or the oversights, and to do all that? And it's like, not everybody has the time to do that, the resources to do that. And if I'm having this much difficulty, and I am a geek when it comes to this stuff, and I have access to folks who are medical professionals that I can, talk to on my personal time and get their opinion. What are people doing who don't have all of these resources and who don't have the time to keep up, or who don't understand exactly what these tests mean? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, holy shit. And I've gotten to the point where, a lot of doctors, they get pissed when you're like, I Googled. They're just like, oh. So I have, learned to couch around that. Like, and it's this weird song and dance. Like, well, I just happened to read, but I'm not saying that because you're the expert. Yeah. So will you just give me your opinion? I heard this thing. And it's like this song and dance. I have to like massage their egos and stuff. And to prove myself to them that I'm not somebody who's going to read some crackpot website that's trying to sell you a supplement and think that it's real science. Like, I'm not that person, it's ridiculous. I have to do that song and dance. And after building that rapport with some of my doctors, I finally gotten to the point where they were like, no, you're the expert here. What studies have you read? What is the new stuff, the new, medical theories and studies that what do you know? Can you give me some links? And I'm like, but man, it was a dance to get to that. And only with just a couple of my doctors. Most of my doctors are just like, you're a whiny lady. It's your hormones. You're that age, and I'm like, oh God, lose some weight. Oh.
And what's frustrating, the more that I have this, not only song and dance, but I now spend my downtime, like the podcast that I listen to in the morning while I'm doing my workout is usually health related. One person I do follow, his name is Sean Stevenson, in the Model Health Show. And he is a big geek. Like, he reads every new thing that's come out and he picks it apart, and he, talks about all the research, but he also talks about how, women weren't normally studied in any prior medical research because, we're women, we're hormonal, we have fluctuations, we have mood swings. So we're not a good candidate for medical research. So the medical treatments and medications we are receiving are based on medical research from a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're just supposed to accept it. And then now that more and more doctors are realizing that they really don't have the answers, they're admitting they never had the answers. They never learned this in medical school.
Yes, that is a huge issue. And a lot of, what has been discovered, I guess, in the last 10, 20 years based on genetics and things that we now know that we didn't know before, Yeah, these doctors didn't know that in medical school. And doctors now still aren't learning it in medical school because it's new, you know. Um, it's unreal. And then there are things like conversion disorder. Look up conversion disorder. And I'm not sure if these days it is something that is still like, in the medical billing or whatnot. But think about when these doctors were trained and when they're in medical school. Conversion disorder is basically like, talk to any person who is navigating the women's health system and they're, have could be, something that's like musculoskeletal, like fibromyalgia-ish or Ehlers-Danlos-ish or something autoimmune, that sort of thing. If you look at the symptoms of conversion disorder, they are a lot of the symptoms that coincide with those conditions. And conversion disorder is basically, y'all made it up in your head. That's what conversion disorder is.
Wow.
It's you're a
will look into that.
hypochondriac. You think you have, you have anxiety. So you hyper focus on every little thing that you perceive as a symptom and you're putting them together to make it like, it's like Munchausen's. I'm like, oh my God. And yeah, the symptom list is just like, wow, that's Ehlers-Danlos. Wow, that's mast cell activation disorder. Wow, that's, all of these that's a lot of the things in the lupus family. That's it's like, oh my God, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but they're still telling us it's in our head.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that, I've seen that from not only the perspective of personal, my ex-husband had gotten addicted to opiates because of pain management. And then we're trying to apply for Social Security disability, and they're going through his medical records. And it is listed in his medical records by the doctors who were prescribing these opiates that it was all in his head. And you can't get that taken out of your medical records. It's got a word, somo, but anyway, it's in your head. It's in your head. Like
Yeah.
he can't hurt that much. He can't have this problem. We've tried massage, we tried acupuncture, we tried all those things up to where their limitation is, and then they shut them off and you can't get those treatments through your insurance anymore or under, the disability. So all they can do is prescribe opiates, and they won't work on treating the patient to get them off the opiates until their kidneys fail, until their liver stops functioning. And that's what ended up happening, because I would beg and plead, like, please, can we do something to get him off these meds? We'll try anything, and we'll try, marijuana, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, we'll do all these things. But we really want to get him off these opiates because the addiction just created a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wouldn't, they got to a point where I was banned from calling and talking to his pain management team. I couldn't attend any appointments with him because I was seen as aggressive, because I was fighting to save, his health and my marriage. And then when all was said and done, and we've gone through being denied for 8 years for Social Security disability. And finally we get to the end, and it's been 8 years, and it's the very last hearing with a federal court judge. And all he wanted to do was talk to me. And that was weird because I was like, well, I'm banned from everything else, but you want to talk to me? And he's like, yeah, I only have one question before I approve or deny. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And he says, all this time, all these years, you have fought tooth and nail. Now you have filed for divorce. Why? And I said, because you all created a monster. And there's no going back, because you're not going to help fix him. You're not going to help get him off the meds. You created the monster, and I'm out. Like, it is no longer physically safe. It is not emotionally safe. I got to take care of me. I've done the best that I can. We were married 20 years. I stood by his side until it was no longer safe.
Yeah.
And when I looked at him and told him that, it was like, Okay. And he approved it
Wow.
because I think he heard the reality. Like he truly is disabled because you created this
Hmm.
extended disability.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're all screwed.
Yeah. I
We're
mean,
all screwed.
people's lives are just, so many people's lives are just ruined, just run into the damn ground by this system, and like I said, even doctors who like, they see the system. I've had doctors say like, the system's fucked. My hands are tied. This is what I can do. And this is like, come here, let me tell you, and it's like, they can't navigate it even when they want to. It's I don't have answers. Like, I don't have answers. I think, like, for me, I've gotten to the point of realizing what they can and can't help me with, and to stop pushing for, certain things that it's just like digging a hole and the sand is coming back in. I'm not going to get that thing. And yeah, part of it is based on my situation, having like, for the first time in my life, 2 test results that came back like, something's funky. Something's real funky. After a lifetime of like, well, your test results are fine. Have you seen that meme where it's like a TikTok where it's from the view, like the camera is from the point of view of someone in a casket, and the doctor leans over and goes, well, they said your test results were fine, so I don't know what the problem is. And meanwhile, the person's dead. Like, I'm like, yes, that's how I felt. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's difficult. It is. There is no good answer. I think part of it for me, and again, it never got me the answer, got me closer, was doing a lot of studying on doctors' lingo, how they describe symptoms. This was a huge one for me, that looking back in retrospect, like, I had peripheral neuropathy that started in my, like, about 30 years old. And it didn't feel like how they describe burning and pain and all these words. I had looked like, could this be peripheral neuropathy? It doesn't feel like. To me, it felt like my legs were swelling. It almost felt like water retention,
Mm-hmm.
And so I would describe it as like, oh yeah, they feel real tight and swollen. And part of that might be, because my vestibular system doesn't work at all, really. Is that affects like sensory perception and how I feel things.
Oh.
So it's like, oh, what are things that I'm describing that I feel a certain way that aren't the typical because
Mm-hmm.
of my condition? It's like, so for years I was like, yeah, it feels like my legs. And they would look at my legs and be like, well, how does it feel now? I'm like, it feels like it right now. Really? It's probably, yeah, it probably is water retention. I'm going to prescribe you some water pills. And, if you tried like the more salt, not as much salt, some electrolytes, some not electrolytes, this, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, just kept getting worse, This doctor I went to, and I told her, I was like, yeah, that, they say it's water retention, but nothing ever works. And she goes, show me. This is the first doctor that asked me this basic question. So show me, like, with your hands, like, how swollen do they get? Like, do you still see your ankle bones? Like, how much do they puff out? How do they look? I was like, they look the same as and then it hit me. Then I was like, wait a minute, I've been pregnant. I've had sausage ankles.
Uh-huh.
I know what water retention looks like. I've pressed and had that dimple from my finger, and
Mm-hmm. The white ring, yeah.
I don't know why and it felt the same. To me, it feels the same. I don't know why it never dawned on me that my legs didn't look the same. And I was like, holy shit. First, that escaped me. Secondly, why were you the first doctor in what, more than 15 years, almost 20 years, to ever ask me that question? So my nerve damage and my neuropathy's just been getting worse for 20 years while they're giving me water pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I can see now looking back, I can see like, oh, I described it weird. I would never in a million years describe that feeling as a burning
Mm-hmm.
ever. But it's like, do doctors think that patients have a medical textbook and they will only use the exact words to describe their symptoms that the medical books have, so not that that's an answer, but that's something for folks to be aware of. Like, look, and how do they describe these things? Use those words.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a medical records summary book that I have kept since my early 30s when I went to college for my paralegal degree. And I refer back to that book
Mm-hmm.
because the information in it was gold. And
Yeah.
it's funny because again, it goes to the same thing. Like I would have law clerks come in and talk to me and ask how to do things like discovery because they didn't learn how to do that in law school.
Ah,
They learned how to twist the law and make it benefit their client. They learned how to fight. They learned how to stand in front of a judge. They learned how to present, but they didn't learn the guts.
yeah.
Nobody sat them down and said, well, you can only ask so many questions if it's this, and you can only do this if it's, nobody told them. And so
Mm-hmm.
they would come to me and be like, so what can you tell us? I'm like, go back to school and take some paralegal classes.
Mm,
Because what you know and what really happens are two totally different things.
yeah.
Um, and most of them, the young ones, really appreciated that. But yeah, it is frustrating. It is difficult. Um, and again, I think a lot too is why there are so many doctors that are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you have
Yeah.
one rheumatologist. Like I'm sure there
Yeah.
was more than one at one point, but they all got tired of these limitations and they've bounced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, one of my solutions, because, it's not only myself who's been going through this, my kids have been going through it. And they have their own dose of medical trauma. And all of us have been through the, oh, well, you're not really sick. You must be depressed. You must have anxiety. Maybe we should try treating your mental health. When you're trying to go treat, it's like, not that people, like, we all need mental health and therapy, and that is an absolute truth, but we were seeing mental health professionals for things that weren't a mental health issue. It was a medical issue, and they're like, well, it's in your head, you must be depressed, you must be anxious. You would be anxious if people were gaslighting you your entire life. This is like normal. Like, I would say we're pretty well adjusted in the anxiety department because most people would be like throwing shit by now,
Yeah.
um, so we have decided to move out of the US for lots of different reasons. We're going to Portugal. And one, yeah, socialized medicine. Not that necessarily the medical system is going to be any better. They have their issues too, right? But I have lived so many years without insurance. So many of us can't afford insurance. And then when we can, it's like, oh, but your deductible, oh my goodness, no, cannot do that. And secondly, whatever is affecting us, which is like the vestibular system and the whole, like the nervous system, it's a whole thing. It affects everything, including your digestive tract, your microbiome, like the whole damn thing. And one of my kids has what's like a violent cyclic vomiting that they can't figure out. And we all have like stomach issues to an extent, and issues with food, like the chemicals in food. And it has been getting worse and worse and worse. And we're not sure if it's getting worse because we are getting worse, or if it's getting worse because the food is getting worse. And so we're moving to Portugal, not just Portugal, but the Azores Islands, like where food, like there are cows roaming the islands. There are, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables. And just the food alone, like navigating eating is so difficult here.
Yeah.
And there are no good choices and everything is expensive. Going there, and I have, you know, I belong to all the forums of, you know, expats and immigrants and people who've moved over, da, da, da. I can't tell you how many threads that I've read where people were like, holy shit, I thought I was gluten intolerant. I thought I had XYZ food allergy. How come I'm here and I'm eating bread every day? I'm eating the foods that always give me problems that even my doctor was like, yeah, you have a sensitivity or some kind of, you know, even though it doesn't come up on the allergy test, because that's a whole can of worms. Things don't have to come up on your allergy test to, you know. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm there. The cost of living is better. The, you know, healthcare system, at least I don't have to worry about being bankrupt, even if the doctors still fuck me around just as much as they do here. Yeah. And that's really the only solution, because here, I just feel like we are getting worse and worse and worse. And like your story, you know, it's completely different circumstances, but it ends up affecting every area of your life, your relationships, your happiness, your everything, what makes you you.
Absolutely.
And I'm done. Like life is too short. I am 52. This is it. I'm like, you know, getting to like the final act here. I'm gonna have some fun and enjoy the body I'm in while I can, because I've been miserable since I was a child, and I have now discovered, or not even discovered, but developed the confidence to know I'm not the one who doesn't know what they're talking about. Like this is real. This is happening. And nobody's going to help me with it. So I'm the fuck out of here. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that is perfect. And I've seen it with other people. And I look to people that are like in Canada and their medical care out there. And again, you know, we talked before we started about environmental factors. And it's not just the food that we put into our body, but it's the chemicals we put on our body. And it's hard to know. Like I spent a period of time with my ex-husband where I took all those flyers that come with your prescriptions and I made like a flow chart so that he could see like the list of side effects from this medication. And now he's on this medication because it's a side effect from that medication. Like he developed restless leg syndrome. He'd never had that before, but it's a side effect from this medication. And that list just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you could see, you know, how it was affecting everything. But in his mind, he said, you know, the doctors wouldn't prescribe me this if I didn't need it. And that was the hardest and where I had to give up because there was no convincing him otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, no, they're giving it to you and they're writing that prescription because they get paid every time they put a pen to paper. They don't give a shit about you. When they did was when he started, and they used to test his kidney function quarterly because of the dosage of ibuprofen that they had him taking for inflammation. And so I was trying to control his inflammation through diet. But at this, you know, if he would stop taking the ibuprofen, then he would have inflammation. And it was obvious, you could see it. And so he'd just go right back to taking it and he would say, well, the food isn't helping. Well, you're not giving it a chance. Like you can't just swallow a piece of spinach and think it's going to fix you.
Yeah.
You know, some things take longer than others. Some things cause other problems, which I found out myself also. I had a period where I had chronic hives for 3 months.
Oh.
Couldn't figure out what it was, went to an allergist, had a whole gamut of allergy testing for them to come back and tell me I was allergic to milk. I can drink milk every day and not have a problem. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not allergic to milk. They sent me to a rheumatologist who looked at my blood work and went, "Why are you here? Like, your blood work shows the extreme opposite of somebody who would be coming to a rheumatologist. Why did they send you to me?" I'm like, "Because they don't know what else to do. They just sent
Mm-hmm.
me to you." And luckily, she was a good doctor, and she says, "I'm not going to charge you for this visit because you shouldn't be here."
Oh.
And it took me going inside and figuring out that what was causing my hives was chronic stress.
Ooh.
There was nothing in my diet. There was nothing that I was putting on my skin. Um, but when I started to figure it out was I had to go show up for jury duty. And I was fine until I was sitting in the parking lot getting ready to walk in and broke out in full hives. I was like, "Oh, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just, I'm stressed. I'm anxious. I
Right.
don't know what to expect." And I walked in the door and they're like, "You can leave. You're excused." I'm like,
Wow.
"Great. I'm going to take my hives and go to the emergency room and get a shot of epinephrine," because at that point, then my tongue started swelling.
Oh no.
And so it was
Yeah.
just, but it was all stress. It was
Mm-hmm.
all stress of things I was going through with an 18-year-old who was out busy being 18 years old and doing stupid shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so complex. It is so complex. And I love doctors that realize that what they learn in their textbook isn't the end all be all. We are learning about new things all of the time. And there is
Every
no
day.
way, like, I don't expect my doctors to know everything. The medical field is a constant work in progress. And, just to drop that ego for a doctor to be like, I'm doing the best I can with what we know right now and the tools I have right now. And I finally gotten to the point where uh the neurologist really, helped a lot. And uh it's basically like signs are pointing to there probably is a genetic condition that has to do with vestibular dysfunction, but these genes that they've just discovered them like a year ago. He's like, I have no documentation. I have no protocol for this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to go to like UCLA or Mayo, like, as a family, and maybe you could be part of the research or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't have the time and the money
I
for
don't have
that.
the time
Thank
for
you.
that. Yeah.
Thank you. Like, but at least, you know, finally I got to the point of like, I'm going to help you as much as I can. Let's try these certain medications just to see. And I'm not one. I'm usually like, no.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have they tried to prescribe me gabapentin? And I'm like,
Oh, yeah. Don't
no,
ever.
no, 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 no. Um, and I finally was like, okay, like I will make very balanced decisions of like, do I want to try a medication? And I finally said, okay, I'll try this medication. Fucking miracle. I was like, holy shit, what is going on? This is great. Guess what? For the first time in my life, I now have high blood pressure, which is a side effect of the medication. And now I don't take it anymore. And I'm like, I'm like, this is why I always say no to your medications, So, but every miss teaches me something. It teaches me like, okay, that's a certain type of medication that works on a certain protein in the body that that's a clue. Like, if I ever
Mm-hmm.
do get to the UCLAs of Portugal, I don't know, to be like, here's a clue. This medication that works on this protein was like a miracle, and it gave me benefits that it doesn't even say it gives benefits
Mm-hmm.
for. So there's a clue. I'm going to take that as information. And then now I'm going to work on hopefully getting I have perfect blood pressure, perfect cholesterol. Like, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you've ruined my streak of like perfect metabolic conditions. Now I have high blood pressure. So hopefully I'll be able to fix that. I'll go, eat my unsalted food and go about my life. Each day at a time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I'm going to ask you an off the wall question just because of
totally.
your background, your experience, your education, your knowledge. So you watch commercials for all these new drugs or old drugs, and my husband is one of those people that's a speed reader, and he can read that fine print while I'm still focused on a flower blooming in the background. I'm like, it's not my thing. But he'll stop it and he'll pause it and he'll read through those side effects. And 80% of the side effects, on all these medications is an infection of the taint. How in the fuck does that happen from something you swallow?
A taint infection?
I'm dead serious.
Wow.
You will start to pay attention to those commercials because I swear to God, that is one of the things it'll say. An infection in your perineum, a taint. It's just like, how?
What
Can
that's
somebody please explain this to me?
I tain't heard that one before. Yeah, I've heard like, genital sores and like that, but like it's specifically in the
Mm-hmm.
perineum.
Mm-hmm. I promise from now on you will see that when you see those commercials.
Wow. So that's it's like, so I had high blood pressure or a taint infection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
A taint's a good choice there. I'm just going to make the
ain't
taint
a good
pun
choice.
jokes all the time.
That's how I try to see it. I'm just like, if I've got to laugh because I can't make sense of it otherwise. Like I may have to,
Wow.
make one of my org charts to figure out how that exactly impacts that. And who's the person
Yeah.
who went, I wonder if it's my medication.
That is unreal. That is unbelievable. Yeah. These side effects, and it's just, oh my goodness. Bodies are weird. I have learned through this whole process, bodies are weird. And especially my condition is or at least what probably the majority of it is neurological based, which is a whole set of like all of these things where they're, like you were mentioning stress, right? For years, both myself, my children, it's like we'll have the symptoms of kind of a panic attack, like your palms will get sweaty, your heart will race, but we're cool as a cucumber. Like we're not thinking of
Mm-hmm.
anything stressful. It's like, and so, it's things like, well, that's a silent panic attack. It is so subconscious. What's bothering you? You don't even know. So go out there. And it's like, no, it's my nervous system just freaking out. Nothing is wrong. A therapist cannot help me with it. And some of these weird ass symptoms, like I've learned now with the whole vestibular thing, derealization and depersonalization is a huge,
Wow.
and we think of those as mental health issues.
Yeah.
Also like weird sensation. There's one they call Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And I was like, I thought it was just a weird thing that brains do. Like sometimes I'll be like, whoa, I'm really tall. I never realized I was this tall before. Or I'll be like, wow, I'm really small, I'm really tiny. And I'll feel like my arm's really long. And I was just like, it's an illusion. Brains do that, right? And I realized that doesn't happen to everybody. And that is actually a symptom, so it's like, man, bodies are weird. And
These are weird.
yeah, we don't know about half this stuff in our doctors, especially
No,
some of
even less.
the strange peculiar, like if I walked into my doctor and said, I think I Alice in Wonderland syndrome is a symptom, they'd be like, we may commit you to some kind of involuntary, like doctors don't think that's a real medical symptom. So
Mm-hmm.
no wonder we're all fucked. Like, God. Oh.
I'm gonna have to do some research. I have notes all over to look into these things that I've never heard of. And that's again the point of this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, the more you dig, the more you learn. And then the more you have to navigate around, like, I heard of these weird symptoms that are totally a bunch of shit because somebody's trying to sell you a supplement,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's a lot. So no answers. That's our conclusion is I have no answers for you. Just, I'm commiserating assuring people that if they're like, am I the one who's, not doing this right? No, you're not. The system is screwed. Even doctors that care have their hands tied. It's a mess.
It's a mess. I hope you find something on the other side when you get moved. And I look forward to hearing some stories after that happens. How do you balance like your health needs and like your professional life? Like I've mentioned before, you are everywhere doing everything. And me from the outside looking in, that's what I see. I don't see all these medical issues and conditions and your children and all of that. Uh, how are you keeping it together? I mean, what choice do we
It's
have?
difficult.
But
I guess I'm good at keeping up a facade that I have all my shit together. I don't. Like, I feel like I maybe get to 25% of my to-do list. And that's something I've had to like come to terms with. Like, I just I can't get everything done. It's stressful. It's this and that. And to just accept that's just the way it's going to have to be. But I also don't have much of a personal life, which is again a reason for moving, like the better cost of living. I don't have to grind and hustle as much. I work 7 days a week, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day sometimes. I can't afford to hire help. So I'm doing everything myself.
mhm.
Thank goodness I'm passionate about this work, because I'm getting to the point where I feel that it's unsustainable. But I think one of the things that has helped me is to really develop my sense of understanding my own body and what my capabilities or limitations are at any given time. So because a lot of what I go through is neurological, and a lot of us who have chronic issues will have like the brain fog and that sort of thing, where it's just like you can't do, so either it's like I can't function physically some days, I can't function mentally some days. And to really figure out like, what are the tasks that I can do, whether it's personal tasks or work tasks, when I am feeling this way, and to recognize, like, to immediately go, this is not a good brain day for me. So instead of sitting at my computer for 5 hours trying to write the same paragraph over and over and over and over and wasting my time and frustrating myself because it is not a good brain day, I'm going to go do something that's more task oriented that I don't really have to think about. So it took a number of years to be able to recognize those different states of being, to be able to recognize what sorts of tasks I can do in that state of being, and to recognize when it's happening immediately and to switch gears. And that has really helped me, you know, keep on task and to be able to put something aside and take up another thing. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be more efficient than wasting 5 hours trying to write a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gets done. So it's been hard, but it's been a very valuable journey to like note that. And I journal every day of like, how am I feeling? What can I do? But that's been a whole education in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that we do that I do with my clients. It's called like an EBT, emotional brain training, where you evaluate like, how am I feeling? How am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
today? Like even before a meal, like how am I feeling? Am I going to be present in this meal? Am I distracted? Am I thinking about the bills that need paid or the dishes, the kids or whatever? Or am I being present in this meal and enjoying the texture, the smell, um, being grateful for the meal, the person sitting across the table from you, or are you in your head?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so
Yeah.
that's been an issue too. But I'm also at a point where I am recognizing when I'm having those bad days. I recently, in fact, at our last episode that morning, I had a trauma response that I wasn't expecting because I was floating on a cloud. I was happy as could be. I was so looking forward to our conversation. I was practicing gratitude in my shower, and all of a sudden, this random thought hit me like a freight train, and I had to literally just turn off the water and get out of the shower. But I was conscious enough in that decision to go, okay, I know exactly what that thought was. I know it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening right now. There isn't a bear coming after me. This is not real. And I was able to reach out right away for help because I know what helps me get past that.
Yeah.
And
That
so
is
that
just,
has
yeah.
just been huge in figuring those things out and understanding trauma response as a whole, that your body can react to, like you said, something that your mind isn't even thinking about. Like you're cool as a cucumber, but your mind thinks that a grizzly bear is behind you and you're in this panic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's not something we control. It's something that our body is hanging on to from our past
Mm-hmm.
that, for whatever reason, just decided to come out and play.
Right, right. And I think a big part of it is like not blaming yourself for that, but also too recognizing it's not always, and there are all sorts of different situations and different people in different circumstances. Like in my case and my kids' case, it's not even that there's something subconscious. There's nothing. It's our nervous system misfiring, making our body go through this like panic for no reason. It is not connected to any trauma, any mental thought, anything. It's just our nervous system going, what am I supposed to be doing? Freaking out for no reason. And so, to recognize that, yes, absolutely. Sometimes it is like that trauma is trickling in and we don't know. And sometimes, especially those of us who have neurological issues, it could be for literally no reason except your body just decided to be mischievous and have a panic attack without you. Like, yeah, it's a trip. Bodies and minds are a trip.
Absolutely. So you talked about resources of like support groups. Um, has that helped you a lot in the not feeling alone or also in the exchange of information?
Yeah, it has helped in not feeling alone, like Facebook groups, like all sorts of different groups, but it's like also those groups are a slippery slope because you'll find people in there that have great information that it's like, this is everything to hear your experience or what you figured out. And then you have people in there that don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they read a weird website and like a non-peer reviewed study, and they drew some conclusions that don't make sense, but they seem really logical on the surface. And they lead you down a road. So like half of the group is on a runaway train of like, we don't know how science works. And then half of the group is like, yes, we're on the ball. We're based in reality. So like those groups are that slippery slope of like, to go in really being cognizant of other people's biases, your own bias, limitations, etc. But going into those support groups with that in mind, they have been everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know.
It's the talk, like I said, it's naming it, sharing the stories. We're all coming back to the same stuff.
Again, goes right to why I'm doing all of this. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think I always call it, what you don't know or the more you know. So if I learn something like in a conversation like this that is valuable and I want to share it, I will do the research. I, will come up with as much as I can of current information, reach out to other people in the medical field or whatever, and then present that information out to people with a kind of like, did you know, or what we don't know. Um, One of the
Yeah.
things here in New Mexico was that there was a Senate bill that was passed that provided mental health care for people who have insurance, but with no copays and no
Ah.
limitations.
Ooh.
Um, and for somebody, when I finally got in to see a therapist, I mean, luckily I had insurance and my copay was like $10, and I stumbled across this Senate bill and I took it to my therapist and I was like, not that I'm complaining, but why am I paying a copay when I have insurance? And is there a limitation? Like, can I only get 12 visits under this for no copay? Or and she was clueless. She was like, man, I don't know, I never heard
Mhm.
about that. Let's go talk to the accounting department. And so together we went and talked to their accounting department. And it was the same thing. They were clueless.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was putting that information in their hands so that they could do the work, do the research, and help their patients continue to receive care, who or help patients who aren't receiving care because they can't afford the copays.
Mm-hmm.
So I am constantly in this, did you know? Did you
Yes.
know you can get mental health care? You can get therapy. You can get these things with no copays, but it's only going to happen for another couple of years and then it'll be revisited because this is like federal funded or whatever. Um, but if you can save me $100 and I cannot stress over going to my therapist, that's gold.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a never ending fountain of like, here's this information you didn't know. It is unreal. And one thing I also want to encourage folks, and I've learned this the hard way, is when you boil a lot of these issues down to their symptoms, they seem very similar. And I have been down the road where I'm like, oh, I found the problem. I think I have this. Oh, no, it wasn't that. Okay, now I think I have this. And oh, no, it wasn't. And balancing that
Mm-hmm.
with, doctors misdiagnosing or whatever it is, to have that, I don't know if it's humility or whatever it is, to be like, whoa, I totally thought this thing and I was wrong. And one of just example for my life, and not that we're all different, but connective tissue disorders, Ehlers-Danlos, tend to travel in threes with mast cell activation and what's called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And it's
Mm-hmm.
basically like you change position, your heart rate races, some people pass out. I've
Mm-hmm.
had that my whole life, so I did the tilt table test and the da 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 da. And I also know sometimes the tests for POTS can be wrong, right? There's sometimes it's like, oh, it's negative and you really have it. That happened to me. And the cardiologist kept going, no, 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 no. He's like, I think this is neurological. This is right before I was going to see my neurologist. I'm like, come on. This is classic POTS. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Da, da, da. Found out he was absolutely right. And this whole time, even though I had every symptom, just like POTS, it's because I don't have, like, your vestibular system is your balance system, and it's one
Mm-hmm.
of your senses. It's what helps you sense the world, sense like your balance, space and time, your spatial reasoning, all of that stuff. And not having that is like not having a sense.
Yeah.
Like, it is, I am impaired. And so it turns out when I tilt my head a certain way, my body's trying to recalibrate because I don't have a vestibular system, and that makes my heart rate spike, and it looks just like POTS. And it was like years of going thinking I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that most of the time it's the doctors that are wrong, and most of the time it's me that's right, but this time I was actually the one that was wrong. That's really hard to parse out, but like, keep that in mind as you're navigating your stuff, because things can feel like, this is it, I know this is it, and then you can find out it's something else. Like, it's so complicated. It is so complicated. Yeah. It is.
I,
It
that's
never
a
ends.
lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. I'm just like, I thought I was the smartest person in the room. Turns out I was not. Like, damn.
It's just so hard. It's their lack of knowledge. It's our lack of knowledge. It's a mixed bag of different. Everybody's different. Everybody's
Yeah.
different. We can't compare any two people. And I think that's what symptoms are. It's, oh, these things are similar in this amount of people,
Right.
but they don't
Yeah.
say, what about the rest of the people that are outside that bubble?
Yeah. There's only so many symptoms that can exist. And when we're sick, have an ailment, we're going to have some of them, and they could mean 8 million different things. Like, yeah. Oof.
So we're gonna close this up. What is one message that you would like to send to other women?
Oh, gosh. You know yourself best. You know your experiences. Even if at that moment in time you may not have the technical know-how to be like, this is my diagnosis, right? Or like I said, you could be wrong, but you know what you're feeling. You're not, as they label, crazy. No, you're not making it up. And stick to your guns. I know it's hard, and I know we get labeled as bitchy and aggressive, or we're told not to come to appointments anymore. But you know your stuff. Yeah. Hang in there.
Thank you so much for everything you shared, for your openness to discuss these things and share just the different challenges that you faced, trying to be educated, trying to be prepared when you meet with other doctors. I mean, it is all just so valuable to so many of us that are having these same, not the same struggles, but struggles. So that we know that we have to fight for our treatment. And then that may mean many doctors, and learning different things. But I really appreciate everything you shared, because it will hopefully provide people, more information for themselves to, I don't know, maybe stay out of the rabbit hole sometimes, or just do your best to be prepared and educated to the best that we can, and
Yeah,
not listen to everyone we hear on the interwebs, or um, because not every, I mean, even the doctors that should know don't know.
exactly. Exactly. Oh, one last final tidbit. I know it's like we're one last tidbit for like the last 20
Please.
minutes, but I recently discovered that a lot of doctors will let you audio record your conversation, which has been invaluable, especially, with me and a neurologist. I'm like, it's hard for me to absorb all the things. Would you mind if I put on my phone an audio record? Sure. I've never had a doctor say no. And it has been so invaluable just to listen back and to realize, like, I did kind of make my own one-sidedness of that conversation, and maybe it was part of gaslighting oftentimes. And
Mm-hmm.
hearing it back has been like, well, yeah, okay, I wasn't imagining that, or I was imagining that it was my fault and it wasn't. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
See, and I never would have known that that was okay.
Yeah.
So that
It
is
can't hurt to ask. I know you've said that before.
that is a
Can't hurt
valuable
to
tip.
ask. Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that something recently too, as far as coaching with clients, was that there's a program, I think it's called Otter AI,
Yep.
that can transcribe your Zoom meeting with another person. And then you can give them that so that they can go back for themselves and reread. Genius.
Yes.
Genius.
Yep.
I'm almost surprised that doctors allow it, just because I think they are always in the fear zone of medical malpractice.
Yes. I
If you're
was
going to
shocked.
flip
Maybe
that on
I've
them.
just gotten lucky, but for me, I started with a neurologist because I was like, brain fog. We've talked about it. Do you mind if they were like, sure, go ahead. And I was like, you agreed to that way too easily. Like, wow. Who would have thought? Yeah.
I'm going to put that one in my hat for sure,
Mm-hmm.
because, yeah, great to know. So thank you so much, Sunny. You are amazing. Keep doing what you are doing to provide quality education, and definitely being your most authentic self, because you have blessed my life. I look forward to learning more from you, seeing how you progress with your change and your move. I'm envious. I hope that you get some of the help and answers you need, or just that you have access to better care, better quality of food, less chemicals that you put into your body that we breathe. You won't have the horrible air like, LA or Vegas. Air quality, I'm sure out there is amazing.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. Um, if you enjoyed this interview, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Finding Resilience with Leanne. Happiness on Tap is available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible. Make sure you go to my website, subscribe to receive my newsletter, and you can find me on all the socials. And you can find Sunny on all the socials. I am going to include all those amazing places, including her direct link, her website, American Sex Podcast, Open Deeply Podcast, her Patreon. That will help her continue to do what she is doing, because it is very difficult for sex educators to get their information out to the world. So please do what you can to support other entrepreneurs and sex educators, because it only benefits us. So thank
Thank
you,
you so
Sunny.
much.
I appreciate you so much.
Back at you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, hon. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.